I set up my tent in the Appalachian woods a few days ago. It was getting dark. The fire crackled as I sat by it, trying to enjoy the peace. I was 34 and loved being outdoors. This trip was supposed to be perfect. Just me and nature. Then I noticed strange, flickering lights between the trees. My heart sank. I thought it was other campers, but it was too quiet. I grabbed my flashlight and walked over, but I found nothing. Just shadows dancing in the dark. The next few days blurred together. I hiked the trails, but I felt like something was watching me. I kept seeing movement out of the corner of my eye. Shadows glittered beyond my sight. I heard whispers, low and eerie. It felt like I was losing my grip on reality. One night, I woke to laughter. It was distant but clear. I shivered in my sleeping bag, the cold creeping in. The laughter came from the direction of the lights. I had to know what it was. Every evening the lights returned, swirling and teasing. They pulled me in, but I felt uneasy. I started discovering strange stick formations everywhere. They weren't natural. I felt like they were warnings. I stood frozen when I found one late in the afternoon. It was a bunch of sticks arranged in a circle. I remembered the lights and the whispers, and I panicked. I spent hours trying to ignore it, but it hung over me. Late one night I stepped out of my tent. I followed the sound of laughter. My breath caught in my throat as I saw a figure among the trees, just a dark outline. I called out, "Hey!" No answer. My heart pounded. I walked closer. The figure didn't budge. I asked, "Are you okay?" The silence weighed heavy. I wanted to turn and run, but curiosity kept my feet planted. I glanced back toward my camp. The figure was still motionless. The laughter grew louder, echoing in the trees. I turned back and the figure vanished. I felt a chill run down my spine. I should have gone back to my tent, but I followed the laughter instead. Then I heard a voice right behind me. It whispered, "Why are you here?" I jumped and spun around. No one was there. Panic flooded through me. I stumbled back toward my tent, but the laughter swirled around me. When I thought I might make it to safety, I heard something new. A breathy voice, soft and low, said, "Why are you with her?" I froze. I turned to look. Nothing. Just the darkness wrapped around the trees. The laughter burst into a chorus of giggles surrounding me. I felt trapped. My heart pounded. I heard footsteps behind me, then silence. I turned and nobody was there. I couldn't move, just shadows closing in. I wanted to scream, but the laughter drowned it out. I was all alone in the woods. I rushed back to my tent, heart racing. I fumbled with the zipper, my hands trembling. When I finally crawled inside, I threw the flap closed and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. The laughter still echoed outside, weaving through the trees. I felt a wild urge to scream, but I bit my lip to silence it. The darkness felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on my chest. I glanced at my flashlight lying just a few feet away. My mind raced. Should I stay in the tent or go back out and face whatever was out there? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was close. Just as I decided to grab the flashlight, I heard a knock on the tent. I froze. It was soft, but unmistakable. I held my breath, straining to hear anything else. The laughter had faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. My pulse hammered in my ears. "Who's there?" I managed to whisper, but no answer came. I reached for the flashlight, fingers shaking. I flicked it on and illuminated the small space. I could barely see the outer fabric of the tent quivering in the wind. Then I noticed something outside. A shadow shifted near the edge of the tree line. My stomach dropped. I couldn't tell if it was a figment of my imagination or something real. The flashlight beam faltered against the thick darkness, and I felt my heart pounding louder than before. Gathering my courage, I slowly unzipped the tent. The air felt different outside, charged. I peered out cautiously, scanning the trees. My breath caught when I saw more stick formations, more intricate than before. It was like they were alive, shifting in rhythm with whatever unseen force was lurking. "Why are you with her?" echoed in my mind, chilling me. I had to get away from the tent. I stepped outside, flashlight in hand, determined to see whatever was there. I kept telling myself it was just my mind playing tricks, but deep inside, I knew something wasn't right. The laughter returned, faint but persistent. I hesitated, but I couldn't turn back now. I moved toward the sound, retracing the path I had followed before. As I walked, I tried to shake the feeling of being watched, but it lingered, heavy and suffocating. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. The silence enveloped me like a thick mist. I strained to hear something, anything, but it was as if the woods had held their breath. My instincts screamed for me to turn back, but I forged ahead, drawn to whatever was waiting for me. That's when I saw it. A light flickered to my left, brighter than before, twisting like a beacon. I crept toward it, my heart racing, forgetting the fear for just a moment. It danced between the trees, teasing me closer. Then something grabbed my ankle. I stumbled, falling to the ground. Panic surged through me. I turned quickly, and before I could react, a figure loomed from the darkness, their face obscured, but their eyes glimmering. I froze, unable to scream, feeling like prey caught in a trap. Someone was in the woods with me, and I was not alone anymore. My heart pounded wildly as I stared up at the figure. The world around me felt unreal, like a warped version of the woods I knew. I scrambled to my feet, instinct screaming at me to run. The figure didn't move, just kept watching me with those glinting eyes that held an intensity I couldn't understand. "Who are you?" I managed to croak out, trying to steady my voice. I wanted answers, but all I got was silence. It felt like time stretched, the air thickening with the weight of their presence. I took a cautious step back, still keeping the flashlight trained on them. The light flickered against their outline. I could make out a worn jacket, dirt-streaked jeans, and long hair that fell wildly around their face. They looked human, but there was something off about them. A strange energy that made every hair on my body stand on end. "Why are you here?" They finally spoke. Their voice was hoarse yet melodic, sending chills down my spine. It was the kind of voice that could convince someone to stay or to flee. I couldn't tell which one I wanted more. I'm just camping," I stammered, feeling foolish for saying something so banal. "You are in danger," my mind screamed. But I was too afraid to sound panicked. The glimmer in their eyes seemed to intensify. "You shouldn't be here. Not tonight." The urgency in their tone sent a frisson of fear through me, making the back of my neck prickle. "Why?" I kept my flashlight steady, though my hands shook. The woods felt alive around us, the wind whispering secrets I didn't want to hear. "Because they're coming, you'll see." With that, the figure turned abruptly and darted into the dark underbrush, disappearing before my eyes. I felt a strange loss, like something important had just slipped away. Then I remembered the laughter, how it had faded just before the figure appeared. I had to get back to the tent. It felt like safety, like a barrier between me and whatever was stalking the woods. I turned, breaking into a sprint through the twisted trees, the beam of my flashlight cutting a frantic path ahead. But as I ran, the laughter returned, louder now. It echoed around me, mingling with sounds of rustling leaves and snapping twigs. I could feel warmth creeping up my back, an unwelcoming presence that made my skin crawl. Was it behind me? I didn't dare look back. I reached the tent and dove inside, yanking the flap closed with urgency. "I'm safe now," I told myself, but the laughter continued for a moment longer, drifting out into the depths of the woods. Breathing heavily, I flipped on my flashlight again and scanned the inside of the tent. Shadows danced as the beam flickered, and I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. My heart was still racing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, even in this small space of supposed safety. That's when I noticed it. A small piece of fabric caught on the edge of my sleeping bag. It was a deep green, frayed and dirty, and it felt entirely out of place. I reached for it, trembling, and flipped it over. On the other side, there was a symbol, something I hadn't seen before, a circle encircled by jagged lines. Panic surged through me. I had to know more about what I had just encountered, but as I looked back at the tent flap, the laughter started again, now a wild cacophony. I realized I had stumbled into something much darker than I had anticipated. And before I could catch my breath, I heard footsteps approaching. They were heavy and methodical, breaking the silence like thunder. Shadows loomed just outside my tent, enormous and threatening. I wasn't alone anymore. I pressed my back against the fabric of the tent, heart thundering in my chest. The footsteps drew closer, slow and steady, as if the very shadows were stalking me. I felt paralyzed. Should I scream? Should I break through the flap and run? My instincts battled against each other, each telling me to make a choice I wasn't ready to commit to. Just as I was about to crack, that edge of panic threatening to overwhelm me, I heard a rustling sound. It wasn't like the footsteps. It was lighter and so close that I could almost feel the breath of whoever, or whatever, was on the other side. I reached for my backpack, fumbling to find something, anything that might help me defend myself. The laughter continued, echoing in my mind like a broken record. Had it always been this loud? Or was the sound just amplifying my fear? Suddenly a chilling thought crossed my mind. What if the figure from earlier had tried to warn me about this? Were they trying to protect me, or were they part of whatever was out there too? The rustling intensified. I held my flashlight tight, light trembling as my hands shook. I called out, "Is someone there?" My voice strangely thin in the thick air. No answer. Just more footsteps, circling the tent now, taunting me with the promise of a reveal that I dreaded yet craved. I closed my eyes for a moment, anchoring myself. I had to focus. I pulled up the frayed fabric I'd found earlier, the symbol's jagged lines dancing mockingly in the flashlight's beam. That's when I heard another sound, the softest whisper, almost swallowed by the laughter. It was as if the woods themselves were trying to speak. "Get out." The voice was so faint I wasn't sure if I imagined it. I had no choice now. I had to see who or what was with me. I slowly unzipped the tent flap, trying to keep the movement quiet. My pulse raced as I pushed it open, the fabric parting with an echoing rustle. What met my eyes was more than I had anticipated. A circle of figures crouched just outside my tent, obscured in shadows. Their eyes sparkled in the dim light like stars scattered across an ominous sky. The laughter crescendoed, filling the air with an unsettling energy that echoed through the trees. "Join us," one of them spoke, their voice warped and distorted. My stomach twisted. With every instinct screaming to flee, I stumbled backward. My flashlight flickered, and with it, the harsh beams of the light revealed them further. Wild hair, faces streaked with dirt, and those eyes, glowing with something ancient. They were humanoid, yet wholly alien, and I could feel the power radiating from them like heat from a fire. As I processed what was happening, one figure reached forward, extending a hand toward me. "You'll see what we see," they said, the promise lacing their tone. I took another step back, but collided with the edge of the tent. Was I frozen in fear, or was there something about their gaze that kept me rooted to the spot? This felt like a nightmare, where the more I resisted, the stronger the pull became. Then I caught the faintest glimpse of movement behind them. Another figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked and angular, and I felt my blood run cold. It was unlike the others, a commanding presence that instantly radiated authority. That's when I understood. These weren't mere shadows, they were part of a much larger orchestration, a dance I had unwittingly stepped into. And in that very moment, salvation slipped further away as the leader of this dark congregation took a step forward, their lips curling into a cruel smile. "Welcome to our world." I knew then that escape was no longer an option. I stood frozen, my heart pounding like a drum. Their eyes, those glimmering pools of brightness, held me captive. Every instinct screamed to run, to escape, but I felt a strange pull toward them, a blend of fear and curiosity. "What do you want from me?" I managed to croak out, my voice barely above a whisper. The leader tilted their head, a grin spreading across their grimy face. "We want you to see, to understand," they replied, their voice smooth yet chilling, as if they were dragging their words through thick tar. It sent a shiver down my spine. "Understand what?" I demanded, my voice stronger than before, though I was shaking inside. The rest of the figures shifted closer, muttering among themselves in a language I couldn't comprehend. It sounded like a terrible song, woven with the wind and leaves. With a sudden, frantic movement, the cloaked figure leaned forward, now merely feet away from me. "Your world is so small," they said, almost pityingly. "You have only seen glimpses of what lies beneath the surface." The flickering light caught the glint of an object nestled beneath their cloak, a sharp weapon patterned with ancient symbols that sent a jolt of recognition through me. I took another step back, my breath hitching in my throat. "This is a mistake. I shouldn't be here. I should go." As I said the words, a deep part of me realized how futile they were. The forest felt alive, and I was painfully aware that I was a mere spectator in this dark play. One of the figures finally broke away from the group, ambling toward me with an odd grace. They didn't look like they belonged with the others. Their demeanor was softer, almost curious. You're different," they said, their words awkward and hesitant. "You don't belong here, yet here you are. Here. Let me go," I replied more strongly than I felt. I needed to break free from this dream, or nightmare. I stood my ground, swinging my flashlight towards them as if it were a sword. The brightness illuminated their face, and I recognized more human features, more compassion in those eyes than in the others. But my bravado was fleeting. The leader stepped between us, their face a mask of annoyance. "You will not leave. Not yet." Panic surged, and I glanced back towards my tent, considering whether I could sprint for it. But the way they surrounded me, it felt like I was in a trap designed for me. "What do you want me to see?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "Follow," the leader commanded, gesturing with a sharp, elegant hand. "Come and you'll know." Before I could respond, the shadows shifted, the figures retreating into the woods, beckoning me deeper into their realm. I hesitated, my mind racing with the consequences of giving in. Then the whispering came again, this time louder, more insistent. A whirlwind of thoughts and emotions swirled around me. It wasn't just laughter anymore. It was a cacophony of voices speaking in unison, urging me forward. That's when I saw it, a glimmer catching the light just beyond the trees. A strange pathway laid bare, almost inviting yet menacing in its allure. It felt like a choice laid out before me, shadowed and unsure. With a deep breath, I made my decision. I took a step forward, drawn into their world and whatever it held, knowing that whatever lay ahead would change everything. But as I crossed that threshold, I felt a watchful presence. The figure from earlier, the one who had tried to warn me, standing silently behind me, their expression a mix of hope and dread. And in that moment, I realized the stakes were higher than I could have ever imagined. The path twisted like a serpent. Every step deeper into the shadows felt like slipping further from reality. I could hear the rustling of leaves above me, almost like hushed breaths, and the darkness clung to me like a thick fog. The figures led the way, their movements fluid and graceful, gliding rather than walking. I was acutely aware of every sound, the crunch of twigs underfoot, the whisper of the wind, and the distant hooting of an owl. My nerves crackled with tension. I didn't belong here, but the pull of curiosity was stronger than my fear. The leader paused, waiting for me to catch up, and I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. As we moved deeper into the woods, I began to notice strange markings on the trees. Symbols carved into the bark, pulsing faintly with a soft, ethereal light. They weren't just random shapes. They told a story, or at least, that's how it felt. When the leader saw me looking, they smirked. "See how the forest speaks?" they said. "It remembers." "What does it remember?" I asked, the question tumbling out despite my trepidation. "Everything," they replied, their voice low and filled with a strange kind of reverence. "And everyone. This forest is alive in ways you cannot fathom." I was on the verge of asking for more, about who or what lived here, what secrets lay hidden. But at that moment, the soft, human-like figure stepped beside me. "Trust them, but be careful," they whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. "Not all who wander here come back." I glanced at them, questioning but uncertain. Their eyes held a depth of understanding, mixed with warning, and it threw me off balance. Suddenly, the leader raised a hand, signaling for silence. The group slowed to a stop, and I tried to peer ahead through the trees. The atmosphere shifted, the air thickened, charged with something unnameable. Pulse quickening, I could feel it in my bones. Then, out of the silence, something moved. A flicker of shadow darted across the path, followed by a low growl. My heart dropped. I instinctively reached for my flashlight, the beam trembling as I swung it in the direction of the sound. "What was that?" I gasped, scanning the darkness. The leader grinned wider, revealing teeth that looked too sharp. "Just a watcher, curious about you. They've never seen one like you." "A watcher?" I echoed, heart thudding in my chest. "What does that mean?" Before anyone could answer, a large figure emerged from the shadows, muscles rippling beneath its fur, its eyes glinting like polished stones. It was a creature beyond description, a mix between man and beast, moving with intent. I stumbled back, my instincts screaming at me to run, but the cloaked figure stood still, unperturbed. "Easy," the leader said, calming the beast with a wave. "They are guardians, not enemies. They protect the secrets of this land." Guardians. The term hung in the air with an unsettling weight, blending fear with intrigue. I felt like I was standing on a precipice, ready to fall into an abyss of understanding I wasn't prepared for. Then, in the flickering darkness, I caught something in the creature's expression, a glimmer of recognition, of knowing. It stared into my eyes, and a jolt ran through me like an electric current. "What's happening?" I stammered, the question laced with dread. But then everything went dark. A heavy shroud of night wrapped around me, and in that moment I realized I wasn't just witnessing the unknown, I had become a part of it. I gasped, the air around me thick as if I was submerged in water. I reached out, feeling nothing but emptiness. Fear clawed at my throat. Where was I? Moments stretched into what felt like hours. My heart raced, the pulse echoing in my ears. Then, the darkness began to lift, not in a gradual fade, but with a suddenness that startled me. When my vision cleared, I found myself standing before a clearing bathed in moonlight. The shadows of trees formed twisted shapes, and the symbols I had seen earlier stood out against the pale ground, glowing faintly as if breathing. I was alone. The cloaked figures and the creature were gone. My confusion morphed into dread. I spun around, looking for any sign of them, of anything familiar. "Hello?" I called out, and my voice bounced back, mocking my solitude. Then, from just beyond the tree line, I saw movement. A figure emerged. It looked human, but the way they stepped into the light was unnatural. They seemed to glide, as if the ground were welcoming them instead of resisting their weight. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The figure chuckled, but the sound was wrong, too sharp, too hollow. "Just a curious wanderer like you," they said, their lips curling into a smile that revealed too many teeth. "I don't want any trouble," I stammered, backing away instinctively. "Trouble? No, no," they said, tilting their head. "We're friends here. We embrace the secrets of the forest, unlike most who pass through." My heart pounded as I felt trapped between the deep shadows and whatever this person was. "What do you want from me?" "We only want to share our stories," they replied, taking a step closer. "You're different. You're a story waiting to unfold." A chill ran through me. I needed to leave to find a way back to where I belonged. I turned, but I sensed movement behind me, and the shadows flickered as if something was lurking just out of sight. Panic surged through me. I couldn't stay here. The figure extended a hand, as if trying to reach across an invisible divide. "Stay with us. We can show you the truth of what lies beyond your world." Just as I considered my options, I felt a breath, hot and heavy on the back of my neck. I spun around, but nothing was there, just the trees standing tall, silent witnesses to my fear. Suddenly the ground trembled slightly beneath me. "You should go," the figure said, their tone now serious. "Things are stirring." A sense of urgency hit me. I turned to run, but the clearing seemed to shift. The trees closed in as tendrils of fog wrapped around my legs. I fought against them, panic fueling my escape. Without looking back, I launched myself toward the edge of the clearing, where shadows converged into a dense blackness. I could hear whispers rising all around, the forest alive with voices pressing against my ears. That's when I saw it. An opening in the trees, a path that shimmered slightly, beckoning me forward. I dashed toward it, but as I reached the threshold, a sharp pain lanced through my wrist. I glanced down to see a hand wrapped around my arm, cold and strong. The figure was back, their eyes gleaming as they pulled me close. "You can't escape that easily," they said, and the smoothness of their voice sent tremors of fear through me. "Let go!" I cried, struggling against their grip as the whispers escalated around me. Then everything went dark again. But this time, I wasn't sure I would ever return to the light. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the clearing. I lay on cold, damp ground, surrounded by towering trees cloaked in darkness. The weight of the air pressed down on me as I pushed myself to sit up. Confusion washed over me. How had I gotten here? The last thing I remembered was the figure's grip on my arm. I jumped to my feet, scanning my surroundings. The forest felt alive, buzzing with an energy that made the hairs on my arms stand upright. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig sent shockwaves of fear coursing through me. I stumbled forward, unsure of where to go. The whispers danced around me again, but they were different this time, urgent, pleading. I couldn't decipher the words. It felt as if the forest itself was trying to communicate, warning me or begging for help. I pressed on, convinced that if I could just emerge from the trees, I would find safety. Soon, I reached a partial clearing where the moonlight spilled onto the forest floor. My pulse quickened as I spotted symbols etched into the ground again, this time with more intensity. They pulsed, vibrant and alive, but their meaning remained elusive. I wasn't sure if I should investigate or turn away. Then a low growl broke the silence, drawing my attention. I looked up. A creature stood just beyond the trees, its eyes glowing. It looked like a wolf, but not quite. A hybrid of both feral majesty and something unnatural. The fur rippled as it shifted, revealing patches of skin that were almost human. I froze. The creature opened its mouth in a snarl, revealing sharp, glistening teeth that glinted unnaturally in the light. My mind raced. I couldn't outsmart something like this. I needed to move to get away, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. "Don't be scared," a voice echoed from behind me. It was soothing, almost deceitfully gentle. I turned slowly, and there stood the figure from before, this time with their hood down. Their face was pale, features sharp, with those impossibly wide eyes staring into mine. "You're safe with us. Just let go of your fear." "Safe?" I repeated, trying to sound brave. "You're the one who grabbed me. I was trying to escape." "Escape? Why would you want to leave paradise?" They circled around me like a predator surveying its prey. "You're drawn here for a reason." The wolf creature shifted closer, still observing, its growl deepening. I could feel my heart pounding, a drum in my chest demanding release. The figure smiled again, an unsettling expression that only spurred my panic further. "What do you want?" I shouted, half begging for answers, half pleading for my life. "We want you to join us," they replied, "to embrace the stories of the forest, to become one of us." The other shadows from the trees began to move, emerging slowly, revealing more figures like the one before me. My mind raced as the whispers crescendoed, becoming a cacophony of sound, wrapping around me like chains. The air thickened again as fear settled in, and I knew I needed to find a way out. That's when I saw it. A small path at my feet that pulsed softly, an invitation I couldn't ignore. But I hesitated, turning back to the figures, their smiles still intact but now tainted with something darker. I realized one thing. Whatever lay ahead wouldn't just be a decision of which path to take. It would be a decision of who I would become. My gaze dropped to the pulsing path. It seemed brighter than the darkness around me, a heartbeat of its own. I knew I should run, but curiosity gnawed at my instincts. What lay at the end? Was it a way out, or further into the unknown? "Come with us," the figure cajoled, taking a step closer. The creature, now positioned in front of me, let out a low growl, a warning that chilled me to the core. I could feel my breath quickening, fear twisting my insides. Forcing my legs to move, I stepped toward the path, leaving the enticing words of the figure behind. But before I could make a full turn, the figure lunged for me. "You don't understand." They reached out, fingers barely brushing my arm. The touch sent a shock through me, not painful but disorienting. I stumbled back, crying out as my foot slipped on the damp ground. "Wait, you need to hear us." Their voice rang, echoing through the trees. I didn't stop to listen. I darted down the path, pushing branches aside, my heart thudding like a wild drum. Behind me, the growl turned into a howl, the creature following. The world around me shifted as I ran, shadows creeping closer, clawing at the edges of my vision. The whispers surged, louder now, forming a soundtrack of pleading and urgency. I could almost make out the words, "Help, join, run." I stumbled, catching myself against a tree, the bark rough against my palms. I had to focus. I needed to escape this maze of terror. Glancing back, I saw the figure standing still, their expression a mix of disappointment and dark amusement. The wolf creature had stopped, stalking around, its eyes burning with an unnatural light. I pressed forward again, feeling the pulse of the path beneath my feet. It was guiding me. I had to trust it. As I ran, a flicker of light cut through the trees ahead. Shapes started to form within it, figures moving in a dance, swaying in a rhythm that both intrigued and terrified me. I burst into a larger clearing, illuminated by an otherworldly glow. There were more people here, their faces obscured but their eyes shining like those of the wolf. They twirled and laughed, a cacophony of sound, merging with the whispers that echoed in my mind. It was a celebration, wild and primal. "See?" The figure from before spoke again, stepping into the light. "You belong here. This is where you can find your true self." The realization struck hard. I was trapped in a choice I didn't want to make. Stepping further into the clearing felt like walking into a trap. All I wanted was to go home. But it was becoming clear. They didn't want to let me go. Then, in a surge of desperation, I saw something glinting between the dancers. Their shadows flickered, and something sharp caught my eye. Was it a weapon? Or a key? That could be my way out. But would the figures let me grab it? I hesitated, the shouts of joy morphing into demands. The ground vibrated beneath me as if the forest itself was alive and aware. I stood on the precipice of choice, the allure of the celebration fighting against the instinct to flee. I took a step toward the glimmering object, heart racing. The moment hung in the air, thick with anticipation, and I felt the eyes of both the wolf and the figures bearing down on me. Would they let me take it, or would I finally understand why I had been drawn here? I lunged toward the glimmering object in the center of the clearing, my heart pounding as I fought against the heavy pull of the surrounding figures. The wild, intoxicating atmosphere of the celebration shifted as they turned to watch me, their laughter dying down to a whisper, the air crackling with tension. I could feel their eyes drilling into me, quietly urging me to remain, to yield to their invitation. As I reached the object, it came into sharp focus, a small, ornate dagger, its blade gleaming with an otherworldly light that seemed to pulse in time with the rhythm of the encroaching shadows. I hesitated, fingers hovering just above the hilt. Was this a weapon, an escape, or a symbol of my entrapment? Before I could decide, the leader's voice rose above the gathering. You choose the path, but every choice has its price. Motioning to the circle of figures, they added, join us, or be consumed by your fear. The wolf creature growled again, a guttural sound that sent fresh chills cascading down my spine. In that moment of hesitation, the world around me began to thrum with life. The symbols on the ground glowed brighter, and I could hear the whispers again, pressing in from all sides. Part of me screamed to abandon the dagger and run back the way I had come. But another part craved understanding, beckoned by the otherworldly energy that suffused the clearing. I gripped the hilt of the dagger with both hands, raising it above my head. No, I shouted, the ferocity of my voice surprising even myself. I'm not afraid. The figures gasped, and for the first time they looked uncertain. What are you? One of them called out, voice laced with anger and awe. I took a step back, raising the dagger defensively as I swiveled in a circle, scanning the faces that surrounded me. They were shifting slightly, shadows within shadows, glimmering yet terrifying. I'm just a camper, I replied, the words tumbling out of me with both vulnerability and defiance. The wolf creature paused, its growl switching to a curious whine, as if it were evaluating me, considering its approach. I didn't lower the dagger. The energy crackled around us as I tried to harness the force rising within. Let me go, I demanded, heart racing, each second feeling like an eternity. The laughter returned, a low cackle that rolled through the air like thunder. You think you are so different? The leader asked, their voice sardonic. You think you can just leave? Watch, I commanded, stepping back toward the pulsing path where I'd first entered this area. I pointed the dagger toward the ground, flicking the blade against the symbols that decorated the earth. Instead of fear, I envisioned strength, my own will pressing against the darkness. In that moment, the spell they had cast upon me started to unravel. The figures wavered, their forms blurring at the edges as if the darkness around them was swallowing them whole. The energetic pulse of the dagger surged through me, and I felt connected to something far greater than myself. I was a part of this world, but I was also free to redefine my own narrative. The surrounding figures began to retreat as if realizing the weight of their collective influence was vanishing, dissolving back beneath the cloak of the trees. Caught off guard, they began to scatter, their laughter transforming into overlapping murmurs that echoed like secrets, slipping away into the void. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the beckoning pathway growing more defined, pulling me from the threshold of this twisted party. "No, don't go," one of the figures called, panic rising in their voice. "Stay and learn. You might see wonders you can't imagine." With a final glance over my shoulder, I took a step deeper into the pathway, feeling an exhilarating rush of escape as I crossed the threshold. The last thing I heard was the wolf's primal howl, blended with the dreadful laughter of those figures I had left behind. The sounds faded, but the energy of the forest remained, a whisper lingering in the back of my mind. When I finally broke free of the ominous trees, I stumbled into the daylight. Panting, I turned back to see the outlines of the forest, a dark, looming shadow against the bright sun. I had made it out, but the weight of what I'd left behind sat heavy in my chest. I stood there for what felt like hours, the world around me quiet. But within me, the echoes of laughter intertwined with memories that seemed both foreign and intimate. Who would answer the questions that remained? Had I truly escaped, or merely entered another phase of their world? I moved away from that dark forest, uncertainty mingling with relief. Sometimes I think about that night, about those figures and the laughter that still haunts my dreams. I can't help but wonder if I'm not free at all, still tethered in ways I don't yet understand. But for now, I walk on, carrying my story, holding on to its shadows, yet stepping firmly into the light.